You're in the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
So, if you notice that the audio quality of Chris O'Brien's chatter is a little bit less than perfect, it's because he's using, a headset mic on the road?
Oh, sorry about that. No, I'm just talking into my laptop, basically. I'm in Santa Fe, wonderful wilds of northern New Mexico, and working on book 2 of the Stalking the Herd project with my mentor, best friend, in many ways. We've known each other 20 plus years, have been close research buddies. I've, gained a lot of insight, and, I owe a lot of my quality of thinking to David Perkins, or Izzy Zane, as he's known amongst a select few friends.
Before I go on, how does he become Izzy?
It was a joke decades ago. People wanted Izzy Sane. It was like Izzy Zane. It just kind of evolved into this pen name, I guess. When I call him up, I say, "Hey, Iz, what's up?" It's not "Hi, Dave" or "Hi, David." He's the Iz. So anyway, we rarely get a chance to get together and compare notes. He was absolutely instrumental in, allowing me the wonderful opportunity to have a research fellow helping me out on some real crucial, end of the project subjects and stuff. And, we realized that we really need to do a follow-up book, that the two of us postulate what the evidence suggests is going on with, the unexplained livestock mystery or phenomenon.
Now, we should point out here that on this past weekend's episode of After the Paracast, which is the premium podcast you get with the Paracast Plus subscription, we talked about this new wave in 4 different states of cattle mutilations, and we'll focus more on that in the near future. Today, we're going to synchronize our comments. But first, I wanted to mention something here that you'll be interested in. As you know, there's an article in this blog called The UFO Trail, called UFO Community Members Weigh In on Dubious MUFON Speakers. Now, it's not new. The blog is dated June 25th, but it's got a really interesting collection of contributors.
Yep.
It's got Nigel Watson, William Grabowski, Frank Warren, Dr. Michael Heiser, Dr. Tyler Kochjon, somebody who used to be on the show that we don't mention anymore. We also have Curtis Collins, Robert Schaefer, Lance Moody, James Carrion. And the most important one, I think, of all of them is James Carrion, because he is a former international director of MUFON.
Right.
And he points out that during his meetings with the board of directors, when he was in that position, they would talk very much about putting bodies in the chairs at the conferences, how to increase memberships, not as much about the main focus, which is presumably UFO research. Now, I understand, yes.
The scientific inquiry into the UFO phenomenon.
Excuse me. That's worse. Because think about it this way. The focus is UFO research. We understand that it costs money to do that research, and therefore you want to improve your membership. You want to have members buy different kinds of things that maybe enhance their membership, or buy the T-shirts.
What did Carrion say? He says, if you don't like it, don't give him money.
Well, as he said, fact number 2, MUFON is run by a business board of believers who pay lip service to scientific principles. Now, the other thing he mentions is that MUFON is a data collector with no clear vision on how to convert that data into scientifically sound analysis. Now remember, MUFON has been around since the late 60s, spun off from APRO, another UFO organization that existed from the 50s through, I guess, the 70s. And the question we have is, what has MUFON learned after all these years? The problem, as pointed out in the article, is that they will pick speakers for their conferences, not so much on whether they have valuable information to offer, but on whether they can fill seats. Doesn't matter what they have to say. Fill seats, fine. Go ahead and speak.
Fill seats with butts.
Right. and make sure the people who go to the conferences pay through the nose to get there. And we understand that maybe people with some kind of name recognition will attract more people to attend. But the problem with that is, if their research methodology is faulty, is it really helping the organization to get them there? The other question is, if someone is involved in a UFO episode we know to be fake, the Roswell slides, I hesitate to use that term, the topic that shall not be named, the people involved in the Roswell slides get to be key presenters at a MUFON conference? I guess if they said, look, we'll come and we'll apologize for what we did, I think that would be suitable. That would be responsible. But otherwise, why do you reward people who just wasted everyone's time? Which is, I think, what is...
Well, again, it all comes down to meme propagation. And I guess another way to put it would be sort of helping a meme, I don't know, sort of go down the meme path, if you will. Well, I don't know. I think the MUFON model is really in business to propagate the meme of alien space brothers or ETs. And so they're, much more prone to glom on to people that support that particular, sort of cultural meme or religious belief, as far as I'm concerned. And so it's very difficult for creative thinkers or thinking outside of the box, the Lyle Watsons, the Patrick Harpers, myself, David Perkins. Creative thinkers are kind of left out out in the nether weeds. So,
and forget about Alan Greenfield.
Exactly. So my point being is that you're dealing with the aiding and abetting of meme propagation by unwitting participants who are doing this out of quasi-religious belief.
And so how many people who actually harbor contrary opinions will get a seat at the table?
They're heretics.
Right. Yeah. It's like, if you're a Christian, will you invite a Jew or a Muslim?
Yeah, I mean, the analogies go across the board, but basically it's heretical to think anything is going on besides, us being visited by either, benevolent space brothers, the Watchers, the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, the Lyrans, the Draco. I mean, the Zeta Reticuli. I mean, to me, that's all just sci-fi. It's all subjective. We don't know.
And that's where it goes, and that's why we continue to have a problem. Now, we understand, like, the International UFO Congress will occasionally have speakers that maybe don't meet our litmus test, but it's not run by a UFO research organization. So it could go from a wider range of speakers without pretending to be something that it's not.
Right. It's Open Minds, presents the International UFO Congress, although it's, it does leave some wiggle room.
Well, we'll go into that wiggle room and possibly discuss this more in after the Paracast. Meantime, we're getting ready for a surprise from Dr. Kirby Surprise. And he has a book out that he wrote several years ago, but it's just so relevant to our discussions about synchronicity. And it's called Synchronicity, The Art of Coincidence, Choice, and Unlocking Your Mind. All right? This is going to be one of our fascinating sessions. And if I want to recommend any study matter, listen to our recent episode featuring Mike Clelland, who turned us on to Dr. Surprise. And we thank him for that. Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
I know that a lot of our listeners are interested in UFOs, the issue of giant skeletons found in America, paranormal investigations, and what the top researchers think about such topics. One online magazine has been presenting such unusual information since 1985. It is Alternate Perceptions Magazine, at apmagazine.info. Use their search function to find articles on just about every topic imaginable. That's apmagazine.info. Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
Are you worried about your mom or dad living alone in their house? Hi, I'm Joan London. Listen, I know how difficult it is to find senior care for someone you love. That's why I recommend a free service called A Place for Mom. They are the nation's largest senior living referral service. Call A Place for Mom today.
To receive free information on senior living communities in your area, call A Place for Mom at 1-800-704-6182.
A Place for Mom offers free one-on-one advice from local advisors and a personalized list of senior living communities you can visit. If you have questions about senior care for your mom or dad, there's a place for answers, A Place for Mom.
Call A Place for Mom in the next 10 minutes to get your free ebook on financing senior care as well as free information on senior living communities in your area. Call 1-800-704-6182. That's 1-800-704-6182.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
Chronic inflammation is now known to block your ability to repair and compromises your immune system, making you more vulnerable to all diseases. Since poor diet, injuries, or stress are all contributing factors, many people suffer from inflammation. Your body's number one means of neutralizing inflammation and the pain that it may be causing is glutathione. Glutathione is the body's number one peptide to neutralize free radicals and thus stop inflammation.
Hi, my name is Jason. I'm 44 years old. For 10 years, I had been suffering from chronic pain in my abdomen and groin that radiated down into my feet. After 3 weeks on One World Way, the pain in my feet reduced by 50%, and the overall pain in my body reduced significantly as well. I ran out of One World Way, and the pain returned. I got another container, and again, after 3 weeks, the pain reduced significantly throughout my body. I'd highly recommend One World Way to anyone dealing with chronic pain due to inflammation.
Call 888-988-3325 or visit oneworldway.com. That's oneworld.com.
No other network provides the level of customer service we do. When it comes to radio advertising, we are your one-stop shop. And no matter how big or small your business is, we can help. Email us at advertise@gcnlive.com, and an experienced advertising executive will help you take the first step towards driving more customers to your business or website. Advertise@gcnlive.com. Easy, affordable, effective.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
With Gene and Chris, we welcome Dr. Kirby Surprise. And the book, as I said in our previous segment, is called Synchronicity, The Art of Coincidence, Choice, and Unlocking Your Mind. And there's a foreword by Alan Combs, who's a professor of California Institute of Integral Studies. I should point out that Alan Combs, this one, is not the liberal talk show host. Okay? Totally different guy. There are people out there named Gene Steinberg, and there are other people out there named Chris O'Brien. But that's how it goes. All right. And we're going to explore this in more detail as we progress, and I hope you listeners heard the episode we did with Mike Clelland that kind of paved the way. Now, first things, we should tell you that we have a second radio show called After the Paracast. It's part of our Paracast Plus premium package. To subscribe, go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. And we offer this show without the network ads, higher quality audio, also the After the Paracast podcast, a growing number of show transcripts, and we just opened up our Paracast Plus video channel. There's going to be more. Dr. Surprise, welcome to the Paracast.
Thank you very much.
Okay, before we get into the nuts and bolts, what led you to explore what synchronicity is all about?
Well, when I was an undergraduate, I had been into meditation and metaphysics for many years, and I suddenly started experiencing an explosion of these coincidental events around me, hundreds a day, something that was totally off the hook. So I started investigating and trying to figure out what was going on more as a sort of survival mechanism and to see, had I, developed some kind of mental illness, because nobody ever told me they existed.
Now, when you say events, what do you mean?
Well, can I give you an example?
Sure.
All right. So I was attending a college in upstate New York at the time, and it was an autumn day, and I had driven my friend to the campus. He was going to go to a 45-minute class. On the way over there, we were joking about National Enquirer headlines, Pope has alien love child kind of stuff. And one of the things we were laughing about was this story that said that there was an exorcism in a house on Long Island, and during the exorcism, the house turned over on its side. We thought that was hilarious.
This is not The Onion, is it?
No.
I think it's before that, Gene.
Yeah. So I drop him off, and I parked the car in a parking lot, sort of face first into this low hill. And I'm going to wait there for him. It's an autumn day. And there's a house, a small cottage that's used for visiting faculty that was out about 50 yards away from me off to the left. And I'm listening to the car radio, and an ad for a local TV station for the movie Carrie comes on. And, is another theme where, during the last scenes of that movie, she basically destroys her house. So I'm looking at this house, this cottage off to the left, and, sort of being a psychology student, I'm wondering, how would it change your personal psychology if you could move something that large? Because as physical creatures, we're sort of based on having to walk over to what we want and get it.
Right.
So I'm looking at this house, and I'm going, wow, what would it be like if I could just make the house roll over on its side, like, in the headline we were joking about? And as I'm watching, the house starts to shudder, and it starts to move, and it literally rolls over forward towards me with a crash and a lot of dust until I'm looking at the roof. The house literally rolled over on its side. So I'm kind of like shocked and freaked out, and I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking, well, is it possible that I just did that? And I said, well, no. Nobody does things like that. It's not possible. But I have the problem of, like, seeing this house just move. So I'm going, okay.
Kirby, hold on one second. Before we get into, the implications of the synchronistic event, let's kind of jump to the chase on the actual physicality of the event. I mean, why did the house do that in subsequent analysis? I mean, why did it do that? Was it on a hill and foundation crumbled on the downhill side and it rolled over?
Let me finish the story.
Okay.
It all will be revealed. So I looked at this and I wondered, well, if I did this, then I want to see the house crush itself into rubble like in the Carrie movie. And as I watch, the thing starts to collapse from the center. 2x4s are going through walls, windows are breaking, and I'm really, really freaked out at this point. And then I see a flash of yellow paint above the house, and this huge bulldozer just climbs over the center of the house from the back and crushes it. And I can see now that the house is flattened, that there's dump trucks in the background.
Right.
And what I've been witnessing is a demolition. I had been trying to come up with an explanation for synchronistic events at this point. And up until then, the best one, Carl Jung, was saying that, these things are based on acausal events in a psychoid space that's neither mind nor physical matter, and that there's no explanation because they operate outside the limits of time and space. Yet what I had just seen mimicked my thought patterns, what I was thinking about. So I decided there must be an explanation, probably linked to people's personal unconscious. And so I then sort of started this dialogue with my unconscious and said, okay, show me how this works. Show me what to read, give me the materials I need to figure out a rational, workable explanation for what these events are. And the result eventually was the Synchronicity book that gives a rational explanation for how they actually work and shows that they're actually reflections of things that are going on inside of us.
Well, all right, you're implying something in that we'll, of course, expand upon. But does that mean that if you envision something like this happening, that begins the actual realization of that, or are you just in the right place at the right time?
Well, here's the short form. Like, I'm trained as a scientist, so, I'm into rational explanations and research. And it does appear that we have the ability to change events around us by about 3 to 6%. There was a scientist named J.B. Rhine back in the 30s, and he was a psychologist at Duke University. And one day, this guy walks into his office and said, "Hey, Doc, I'm a gambler, and I can make the dice come up in my favor." And so instead of throwing the guy out of the office, he did what a real scientist would do. He said, "Okay, let's get out about 6 pairs of dice, aim for the number 6, and we'll do 100 runs, and we'll see, what happens." So he did this, and he found that the guy actually was changing probability 3 to 6% on the dice. So Ryan became obsessed. How is this possible? There's no rational explanation. So he isolated the dice from the thrower. He created machines that would throw the dice for him. He tried various kinds of things. He found no physical force involved, but very consistently, he found that people can influence these dice throws 3 to 6%. He tried it with coin tosses, with, particle decay, all kinds of stuff. Now, he also had an interesting take being a psychologist. Instead of merely looking at trying to find the physics of it, he looked at the psychology of the participants.
You know what? Let's get that answer, the rest of the answer, on our next segment. We have Dr. Kirby Surprise. The topic is synchronicity. With Gene and with Chris, you're in the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
I'm Jesse Gonzalez, Vice President at Kmart. Did you know that premature birth is the #1 killer of babies in the United States, or that survivors can face a lifetime of serious health problems? But you can help. Join me in Kmart for the March for Babies Walk. We'll work together to raise funds for research and programs that help the marginalized fight premature birth and birth defects and improve the health of moms and babies. Start your team today at marchforbabies.org.
There's one major factor affecting the health of millions, and most people are completely unaware. Acid levels. Soda, meat, dairy, caffeine, and sugar can all lead to elevated acid levels in the body. AlkaVision Plasma pH drops get the body's pH levels back in perfect balance. It's a holistic, natural, and powerful approach that will give you greater health, vitality, and zest for life. AlkaVision Plasma pH drops. Visit alkavision.com. Alkalize your body. Supercharge your health at alkavision.com.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
So you've got to take a state construction license exam or certification. Can't decide on what books or what chapters to study? Discover right now how you can eliminate unnecessary books and wasted study time. At contractorexam.com, our study materials zero in on state-required test topics in an effective, multiple-choice format. So whether you're a plumber, electrician, general contractor, or other construction-related trade, contractorexam.com will help get you prepared. Visit us at www.contractorexam.com today.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-905-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV.
Hey guys, Pat Matthews here to tell you all about the newest and best way to sell your products online. It's buysellmakeoffer.com, a brand new site to sell your stuff online. Your old golf clubs, sports equipment, tools, and yes, even your car. Forget about the other guys. Buysellmakeoffer.com will never charge you item fees. Go to the website now and sign up so that you can soon load all your stuff up to sell. This is not an auction site. Just use our resources along with Skype and videos to sell your items quickly and with no fees. Go right now to user-friendly buysellmakeoffer.com, where the first 30 days are on us.
This is Jerome Clark, author of the UFO Encyclopedia and other books. You're listening to the Paracast.
Chris is taking a synchronistic approach to that phraseology. We have Dr. Kirby Surprise, and we're talking about this event here where, for example, is it mind over matter that you can influence the roll of the dice? Is that what we're getting towards, Dr. Surprise?
We are indeed. And what Ryan found, well, first he wondered if there was a moral component. So he matched gamblers and preachers and found out the ability is the same. Then he started doing things like giving somebody a couple of shots of booze. He found that alcohol lowered the ability and caffeine raised it. So there's something biological going on.
Let me get a couple of cups of coffee, then we'll continue.
Yeah, exactly. Now, when he started doing statistical analysis on these dice toss runs, he found that at the very beginning of, say, a 100-throw run, people's ability to do this was, pretty high. It was like 3 to 6% above, normal mean average. Then about 20 throws in, it starts to drop off until eventually, as the sequence proceeds, people start to actually inhibit random chance. They get the target less often than they were intending. Then towards the end of the run, the ability comes back up to normal, and at the very end, they're back to doing 3 to 6% above normal random chance. And what he realized he was seeing was the emotional state of the participant. In the beginning, they're excited. This is cool. They're paying attention. They're dialed in. Then, 20 throws in, it gets boring. And pretty soon, around the middle, they don't want to be doing it anymore. So the ability starts to repress the target. Towards the end of the run, people started anticipating what was going to happen. What are my results going to be? And the ability came back. And he realized he was looking at a reflection of the person's attention and emotional state in the events in the laboratory.
If you keep your edge, the effect continues to occur. But if you lose your edge, it disappears. Is that like the same thing that happens with athletes? We psych them up. The trainer, the coach, the manager psychs up his team to get them at their peak efficiency so they perform their best.
To some degree.
They go on to win the Super Bowl.
Now, the interesting problem here is in order for an individual, he found out that size doesn't matter, so to speak. So it could be dice or it could be the house turning over. There's no scale involved because there's no physical energy involved. So the next problem is, well, how is it that us mere mortals could cause an effect that would essentially require altering of wide-scale events in time and space to accomplish. What I did in the Synchronicity book is I married things like theosophy, special and general relativity, and the new state of physics, M theory, and came out with a rational explanation. Well, let's start with an old science fiction joke. Almost every bad TV sci-fi series eventually gets to the point where they use alternative universes as a plot device.
Talking about the Flash.
Right. But in physics today, we understand that there are an infinite amount of other probable universes right in the same space as us. This is no longer a speculation. This is like the standard model now. Stephen Hawking talks about it. His teacher talks about it. And they believe that we all ride on sort of a projection membrane. When I was in school, they said, well, there's 4 dimensions. There's 3 of space and 1 of time. Well, now they know that just physical reality has 11. And that every possible alteration, even the minor wiggling of a particle, is another universe somewhere. It actually happens. So, the jokes about Elvis is playing Vegas in a universe next door, it's literally not a joke now. Physics is saying that, we actually have this multiverse model.
Does that also mean that when we wish something to occur, there's another universe in which it might occur even if it doesn't happen here?
Yes.
Yeah,
very close.
Utilize your intention there, Gino.
Okay, but there's
Right,
some world, there's some place
is,
where I won $1.6 billion. That's just all I want to know.
Cool. Tap into it, man. Make it so, number one.
Yeah, me too. So
I will engage.
The conundrum of how somebody can alter wide-scale reality is solved because we are not altering reality. We are moving through probabilities. We have a 3 to 6% alteration in our own course in reality.
Right. Multidimensional surfing.
Yes, and we're all doing it already. I mean, it's actually the way time really works. We move from one instant of time to another by moving from one probability to another, and we have some small amount of variation in direction depending on how we use our attention.
I like that. It's almost like 3-dimensional chess as opposed to checkers.
Yeah, so for instance, do you ever see somebody keeping a pet bird in a cage? They have a mirror in the cage. And the mirror is to keep the bird company because the bird's brain is not sophisticated enough to recognize what a reflection is. So it fights with the bird, tries to mate with it, gets territorial, has a relationship with its own reflection. Synchronistic events are the same thing. We are looking at meaningful reflections of our own interactivity. Now, it makes sense that sort of in the evolutionary psychology of people, that if anything could develop the ability to do this, it would be something organic, and we do it. But we're not the only ones. Rhine did experiments where he found that animals alter probability as well. It's innate to consciousness. It's not a special talent. So for instance, he took a random number generator and put it on a light bulb in a cage with a chicken. Now the bird needs the light bulb for the heat to survive. It obviously has no clue about the mechanics of how the light comes on. But the fact that it's looking for the warmth changes the effect on the random number generator and keeps it on more than average. They had one run where they left it over the weekend and the bird died, and the random number generator went back to normal at the bird's death. So the maddening thing about synchronicity is people get lost in their own mythologies. So, for instance, I'm a psychologist. I deal with psychotic, mentally ill people. I do assessment and treatment plans. Had a guy come in to me once, said his file said he's a paranoid schizophrenic. So I have this guy in front of me, and he's kind of depressed, and but I don't see any psychosis. So eventually I just say, look, your file says you're paranoid schizophrenic, but I don't see that. Why? What? And he goes, oh, man, you wouldn't believe me. They never believe me. So I said, okay, well, just tell me. So he tells me that in his early 20s, he's walking down the street pondering something, and he passes by a store window full of television sets, and the announcer on the news show looks directly at him and answers his question. And this freaks him out. It was like a communication. So he immediately was thinking, well, how is this possible? The only explanation he had in his life was, well, it must be God, because only God can do that. Well, sure enough, he starts to see all these coincidences around him of God giving him messages. Off of radio shows, TVs, billboards, conversations with random strangers. Everything is a metaphor.
License plates.
Right, license plates. So he figures, well, why would God be talking to me? There must be some special purpose. So immediately, all the synchronicities are telling him, you have a special purpose. So he goes to all his friends and he said, wow, God's talking to me. I'm on a mission. Something's going on. And of course, they gradually drift away because it sounds crazy to them. He makes the mistake of going to his job and telling them about it, and they fired him because they thought he was unstable. He went through a couple of hospitalizations where he told this to psychiatrists who had no clue about this phenomenon. He got drugged. All this stuff happened, destroyed his life. So I told him my explanation was that, you're creating this. This was the only rational thing you could think of, so that's what you saw in the reflection. You saw this like a God thing with you as having a purpose because that was what you came up with first.
Sounds to me like we are all, to some degree, God or godlike. But I have to tell you something about my personal experience.
I don't buy that.
We'll ride that possibility and other possibilities in just a moment. But right now we have to take a break. And it's not something that we have control over with our mind powers. We have Dr. Kirby Surprise. The book is Synchronicity, and it's going to be fascinating and more fascinating as we go on. With Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Conspiracy Journal is your #1 source for the hidden world of the weird and strange. We bring you thought-provoking and controversial material for free-thinking individuals who are seeking what is really going on in our world today. Some of this material may adversely affect you. Other pieces are meant to enlighten. Either way, be prepared to be intrigued by such things as the reality of UFOs, ghosts, strange creatures from time and space, hidden conspiracies, time travel, Nikola Tesla, suppressed technology, and a whole lot more. You can find out more by visiting our website at conspiracyjournal.com. There you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter sent directly to your email address. Find out what they don't want you to know.
Why be held hostage by your wireless carrier for 2 years? What if you had no contract, no activation fees, no hidden costs, tracking, tracing, harvesting customer data, or draconian gimmicks, all on the nation's best 4G LTE network? Introducing Pix Wireless. Bring your phone and other qualifying devices to Pix and choose a plan starting at only $14 a month. Get connected now. Call or click 1-866-267-2056 or pixwireless.com. Spelled P-I-X, wireless.com. Pick Pix and get connected today.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states.
Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS?
Get on board with the Tax Admiral. Don't pick on the IRS alone. I'll cut penalties and reduce your overall tax bill. Sometimes I can even get it zeroed out completely.
We're an A-rated company helping people clean up their mess with the IRS.
If you owe $10,000 or more, then call the Tax Admiral.
Call 800-287-7180. Again, that's 800-287-7180. 800-287-7180.
Hi, this is Dr. Joel Wallach, the Mineral Doctor. You've heard me talk about 90 for Life for years. 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 2 fatty acids. You may not know this, that I've actually designed Arthrodex for animals. That's right. Your pets need 90 for Life too. Get this essential pet product by calling 877-279-9422. That's 877-279-9422. Again, 877-279-9422.
Ted Anderson telling you about Jordan Rubin's Beyond Organic Green-Fed Raw Cheddar Artesian Cheese featuring whole milk created through ancient dairy breeding, unpasteurized, untreated whole milk on the same farm the cows graze, containing natural sources of omega-3s, CLA protein, calcium, probiotics, and enzymes. I have never tasted cheese this good, and you need to try it. Contact your Longevity distributor or call 877-878-4203 or go to gcnteam.com.
We use mobile devices right against our bodies every day, but growing scientific evidence has emerged showing serious health risks associated with exposure to EMF radiation emitted from these devices. The solution is Defender Shield, the most effective mobile radiation shielding ever developed. Defender Shield blocks virtually 100% of EMF radiation from cell phones, tablets, and laptops, and starts at just $64.99. Buy now at DefenderShield.com. For 10% off, use promo code GCN. DefenderShield.com, the worldwide leader in mobile radiation shielding.
This is Leslie Kane, and I'm with the Coalition for Freedom of Information, and you are listening to the Paracast.
We have Dr. Kirby Surprise in the Paracast this week with Gene and Chris. Chris is in a secret remote location doing research. No, it's not so secret, but that's it. Okay, so I was saying something, Dr. Kirby Surprise, and I want you just to point this out. I said that sounds almost God-like, but obviously it's not.
No, I mean, I believe in the sort of unitary field models of both physics and spirituality, but we're very, very small creatures. We don't have a lot of these abilities. I mean, the New Agers and the hardcore conservative scientists both make sort of the same mistakes in some ways. The New Agers want us to be able to make designer realities, and we can't. We can alter probability around us to some degree. And the extremely conservative scientists say it's impossible for us to infect the environment, yet they don't have a good reason. Now, this client who I told him that he was producing these phenomena himself. Of course, he then told me I was crazy. But then I told him, I don't see any signs of psychosis. So you talk to the TV set and God talks back to him. And he goes, yeah. I said, okay, go back, watch TV, and instead look for Bugs Bunny or Walt Disney talking to you. And he came back the next week and was like, oh my God, I've been talking to myself for 30 years here. Because any reflection is possible. You can turn the universe into Star Wars or Lord of the Rings if you want. The more common thing that's actually happening, though, is you can't turn this off. Everybody does this naturally. Okay? You can have it occur more often by paying attention to it. Okay? But it's not sort of a superpower. It's like everybody does this automatically all the time.
In short, then, it doesn't mean that you could sit there and go through a training regimen and become more adept at it.
Yes, you can.
But
you're training your attention. Now, the thing is, it's not all good. For instance, everybody knows someone who was traumatized, molested by a parent, was in a horrific relationship, and then they keep repeating that in their lives over and over again. Unfortunately, what is reflected is not just conscious choice. What is reflected is also unconscious and transpersonal processes. So if you have deep traumatic material, you are going to tend to look to the environment and reproduce that all the time. You're going to run into situations that reproduce where your energy is actually at. Right. So unfortunately, for instance, children who have been molested, they spend their entire lives usually running into situations that mimic this because it's the major sort of foundation stone of their psychology. So the most important thing people can actually do with synchronicity, besides, as an amusement thing, is you can actually, in the external environment, watch the processes of your own unconscious by looking at the synchronistic events. And there are training exercises to be able to do this. And it's a way to know yourself, which again, if you're going back to sort of unitary models of spirituality, it is the first command, is know thyself. And it can be done through synchronistic events.
All right, Let me just tell you one particular instance where I thought there was something weird going on. And probably we can have all sorts of natural explanations for it. So back in the early 70s, this makes me a pretty old guy, folks. I'm working for a radio station. And for reasons I won't get into here, because it's common with radio, The program director comes to me one day, says, here's your check, take a hike. Okay. I then apply for unemployment. In the meantime, I very deliberately apply for jobs elsewhere. On the very day my unemployment ran out, where I had run completely out of money, I get a call from another radio station. Come on down. We've got a job for you. Come on down. You have to be here in 2 days. We're not going to hold the job open, but if you can be here in 2 days, we got your gig. The day the unemployment and my bank account ran out. Is that synchronicity?
You know, the essence of synchronicity is a meaningful coincidence. The meaningfulness of it depends on the individual that experiences it. So if it's a meaningful coincidence, something meaningful to you, yes, it is.
So we're saying here that synchronicity may be in the minds of the beholder?
Well, it has to be. Okay. So I'm going to run a scenario by you that we know as from neuropsychology is true. Everything you're experiencing right now, everything in the room around you, all the sensations you're getting, is basically completely inside areas of memory in the brain. You have no contact with the outside world. The part of you think of as you is about the size of a walnut. It's on the left side of the frontal lobe. That's the conscious awareness. Now, what you're experiencing is a highly edited set of neurological impulses that are done in areas of memory. People are miracles. The brain is the biggest supercomputer in the known universe. It's biological, but it's absolutely a computer. It's a data processing system. You have billions of sensors pointed out in the environment, producing digital signals. You have about 36 separate sensory channels, because touch is not touch. It's touch, pressure, heat, cold, pain, and so forth. Now, all of these trillions of bits of information flow through your neurons, which are on-off signals, to this massive computer in your head, which then immediately deletes the majority of it as unnecessary and builds you the reality that you see around you in this stage in memory. It also builds what you think of as yourself. It's highly edited. For instance, the right half of the brain is good at seeing through camouflage. It's essentially saying, no, that's different from that. No, that's different from that. No, that's different from that. The left side of the brain is looking for similarities. Yes, that looks like that. I remember that. That's sort of similar to that. We Photoshop our reality. Nothing happens the way you remember it. Everything is altered by current experience over time. So, to some degree, synchronicity, we are pattern matchers. That's what we do. Our natural state was to be on the grassland savannas in Africa, looking at miles of waving grass and shadow patterns and sunlight, and trying to see through the camouflage to see where the food is and what wants to eat us. We are natural pattern processors. Part of synchronicity is looking out and seeing the pattern you've been thinking about. For instance, so here's an example of something that's not a synchronicity, but looks like one. You buy a blue Toyota. Suddenly, there's blue Toyotas all over the road. You see them everywhere. There's not more blue Toyotas, but you're noticing them because you've been thinking about blue Toyota because you bought one.
That happens to me all the time. Anytime I get a new car, oh my God, it's a Kia. It's a Volkswagen. I'm seeing Hondas all over the place. It's like everywhere I go, I see those cars. And as you say, it's because I am focusing on that particular brand because I have one. I think the only time that didn't happen was probably in the 1970s, the early 1970s, when I bought a Mazda RX-2 with the rotary engine. And I had one of the first in the suburban Philadelphia area. Nobody else had one, which is why I never saw one.
Right. So a lot of what looks like synchronicity is actually patterns you're seeing because what you choose to think about consciously creates instructions for the automated parts of the brain to filter for that. The reason we know synchronicity is real is because we did actual statistical research, like Ryan did, to see if there's a change in probability. Now, one of my specialties is research design. One of the facts that's really hard to get around in research design is the best experimental designs are double-blind, which means neither the people that are the subjects nor the person administering the experiment know what they're looking for. The reason we do this is because we know that the act of paying attention to something alters the outcome. It's a statistical, unavoidable scientific fact. In research experiments, one of the banes of everybody's existence is called regression to the mean. So you run a carefully designed experiment. You filter the subjects, you account for every variable, and you find that A has an 80% chance of causing B. Fine, you publish your results, everything's great. Somebody else reproduces your experiment exactly and finds that, well, A only causes B 50% of the time. Then someone else reproduces the experiment again, they only get 30%. And eventually, if you do it enough times, sometimes you wind up with mean average, no correlation. What people expect and want to see affects the outcome.
You know, it sounds like quantum physics. Dr. Kirby Surprise is with us, and this is getting ever more fascinating. It's about synchronicity. With Gene and Chris, you're in the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich, working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare, having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom106.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom, the number 106.com. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom106.com.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
We have Dr. Kirby Surprise. The book is Synchronicity. And what you're telling me here is that with these tests, if the people conducting the tests are influencing it, how do we test anything unless we just do so many trials it averages out?
That's exactly why we have peer-reviewed research and people replicate each other's experiments. Now, some things are more prone to this than others. Anything with a psychological component is much more likely to produce a synchronistic event. A lot of pure physics, though, also produces this. For instance, there's an experiment called the electron slit experiment. Most people have seen this in high school. They make two slits in a piece of paper, and they fire an electron beam towards it. And you get a pattern on the screen on the other side of the slits that's, sort of waves. So all these millions of electrons land, but they tend to form in bands. And the question is, why is that? Because individual particles should just sort of like go through and hit in one spot. So that's why they say things are particles and waves, because you're looking at an interference pattern. The electrons are interfering with each other, and they produce this nice wave pattern. Now, something really weird happens, though, later. They found a way to release a single electron at a time. So only one electron is going to go through one of these slits and hit one tiny spot on the little phosphor screen. Even releasing one at a time, these electrons form the wave patterns. Now, that's freaky enough that an individual particle is also acting and interfering with itself. But beyond that, they found that the electrons will tend to land more where you're looking for them. Now, think about that. Electron gun releases an electron, flies through the air, passes through one of these little slits, but it lands on an area of the screen more often where you expect it to, where you're looking for it. That means that your attention has altered time. It has gone backwards and altered all the conditions that led up to the exact circumstances that electrons release and to hitting the screen. Now, Roger Penrose, who was Hawking's math teacher basically, brilliant physicist, actually lays out a bunch of scenarios, and one of them is, yes, we are influencing reality. The most maddening problem in physics right now can be represented by the letter U, two lines, and the letter R. What we're seeing is, and this is verified dead to rights, particles don't seem to exist until you look for them. Now, they have no idea what to do with that. There's no math that describes where the particle was in the universe before you looked for it and it showed up at one location. That is also the central problem in all of philosophy and spirituality. It's called the one and the many problem. How is it that we are individual beings and yet we know that there's a unitary whole that we're a part of? How do we do that transition? Everybody wants to be God enlightened being. There's no math for it.
It's holographic
physics,
nature, obviously. And we're looking at some sort of non-local sort of implicate order, sort of Bell's theorem, David Bohm. We're looking at instantaneous effect from doing some sort of causal event that impacts a particular particle and any particles associated with that, regardless of distance or space-time. It just instantly, according to my limited understanding of this, there's a non-local effect that it would suggest some sort of holographic interrelatedness or web, if you will. So it makes sense to me, and synchronicity would just be kind of a generated version of that is able to be assimilated and recognized by, an individual consciousness.
Well, here's the thing. One of the problems that Jung had was he thought that these events were generated by something acausal, beyond normal time and space. These one of the other models are inherently flawed because it makes a statement and then has no bridge. So, for instance, to say that we have a consciousness that can bridge into larger areas doesn't actually describe what's happening. Now, in the book, I marry theosophy and planes of consciousness to physics. Now, yes, it's unprovable and it's off the rails, but it works. So, for instance, there's a lot of people that are saying that, we have more than one body we use. There's an emotional and a mental form, and that these are forms of energy, and that the planes of consciousness are actually our emotional energy, mental energy, and spiritual energy in these forms. If this is true, then what some people would say, and what I've done in the book, is say that, well, let's pretend for a second that you're psychic. Okay, you have clairvoyant vision. if you looked at the person next to them, you would see them enveloped in this egg of energy. And in that, you would see all kinds of forms and colors coming and going. What you're seeing is the thought and emotion of the person in what they would say would be astral mental energy. Now, if we say, for instance, that these energies correspond in physics to what they would call N and M space, they exist inherently at a higher light speed than our normal reality. So, for instance, the speed of light is the rate time passes in the physical world. Okay, it's basic, general relativity. Now, if these energies exist, then these temporary forms in metaphysics called thought forms are made of matter and energy that are already moving faster than light. They have a range in time. They create gravitational bending effects that change probability. So when you concentrate on something, the thought and emotion become one of these dense temporary forms, and they have a gravitational effect on the probability around you, which is mental plane energy. Now, as strange as it sounds, explanations do not have to be correct to be useful. For instance, for thousands of years, our ancestors built, stone temples to see when the stars were in alignment so they could plant their crops. So they knew exactly when to plant. Practical, good information put to good use. Their understanding of what the stars are was completely wrong. It was light shining through from heaven, or, the spirits of their ancestors. They didn't understand what it actually was, but they saw a relationship, and once they gave it an explanation, they could manipulate the explanation to useful effect. Now, synchronicity works this way. If you realize you're looking in a mirror, and that because you have some choice about which thoughts and emotions you choose to focus on, then you have some choice about the tonality of the events around you. Again, 3 to 5% doesn't sound like a lot of influence, but it's like compounded interest. Over time, it can be quite a lot. This also has implications for people's philosophies. Like, everybody knows somebody who has got a fundamentalist belief system, either religious or political. Obviously, nobody's here that is crazy. How could you believe that? Well, the reason people get into chasing these mythological loops is because, let's say you're a Pastafarian and you believe in the flying spaghetti monster, okay? So what's going to happen if you're a true believer is you're going to look in the environment for verification of your belief. And because your mental process produces reflections in meaning in the environment, you're going to see events that seem to confirm your belief system. So people shape themselves into this crazy stuff because they're seeing reflections and automatically assuming that it's real just because it shows up in the environment.
Let me ask you more about that in our next segment. We have Dr. Kirby Surprise. The book is called Synchronicity, and you see where we're going in a lot of fascinating places and a lot of fascinating possibilities. You're here with Gene and with Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Do you need a website? Well, you can get a great deal on hosting services with Namecheap's legendary coupon code. They're offering substantial hosting discounts on shared hosting, business hosting, VPS hosting, reseller hosting, and even dedicated servers. Namecheap is preferred by millions. It's backed by a money-back guarantee. Use the coupon code LEGENDARY to cash in on the special deal at Namecheap.com, Namecheap.com.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's Rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
This is a healthcare alert from the Pain Relief Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one suffers from knee, back, shoulder, or ankle pain and have Medicare as your primary insurance, we've got great news. You don't have to suffer any longer. You can immediately qualify for a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost to you by calling our 24/7 pain relief hotline at 866-389-0620. Delivery is free and all paperwork is handled for you. If you are on Medicare and have knee, back, shoulder, or ankle pain, don't wait. You can qualify to immediately receive a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost by calling our 24/7 pain hotline now at 866-389-0620. Our representatives are standing by 24/7 to take your call and rush you your pain-relieving brace at little or no cost to you. Shipping is free and all paperwork is handled for you. Just call 866-389-0620. That's 866-389-0620. Again, 866-389-0620.
This is Holly Thomas, Group Vice President of Cause Marketing for Macy's. Our company is working together with the March of Dimes through March for Babies to raise money and awareness about the serious problem of premature birth in the U.S. That's why Macy's is committed to raising funds through our employees, customers, family, and friends to improve the health of moms and babies everywhere. Won't you please join us in March for Babies? Start a team today at marchforbabies.org.
Are you worried about your mom or dad living alone in their house? Hi, I'm Joan London. Listen, I know how difficult it is to find senior care for someone you love. That's why I recommend a free service called A Place for Mom. They are the nation's largest senior living referral service. Call A Place for Mom today.
To receive free information on senior living communities in your area, call A Place for Mom at 1-800-704-6182.
A Place for Mom offers free one-on-one advice from local advisors and a personalized list of senior living communities you can visit. If you have questions about senior care for your mom or dad, there's a place for answers, A Place for Mom.
Call A Place for Mom in the next 10 minutes to get your free ebook on financing senior care as well as free information on senior living communities in your area. Call 1-800-704-6182. That's 1-800-704-6182.
We use mobile devices right against our bodies every day, but growing scientific evidence has emerged showing serious health risks associated with exposure to EMF radiation emitted from these devices. The solution is Defender Shield, the most effective mobile radiation shielding ever developed. Defender Shield blocks virtually 100% of EMF radiation from cell phones, tablets, and laptops, and starts at just $64.99. Buy now at DefenderShield.com. For 10% off, use promo code GCN. DefenderShield.com, the worldwide leader in mobile radiation shielding.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Just to remind you, everyone, we have a second radio show we want you to check out if you haven't already. It's called After the Paracast. It's available exclusively if you're a subscriber to the Paracast Plus. Go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. We're on a fascinating journey with Dr. Kirby Surprise, Synchronicity, the art of coincidence, choice, and unlocking your mind. So you're telling us, Dr. Surprise, about people focusing on something and seeing confirmation even if the idea is perfectly wacky.
Right. You're not looking at reality. You're looking at a reflection of what you're thinking.
Okay, so the issue I would have there is, how do you know that what this is just something wacky that you're getting obsessed with and not something that has external reality?
Well, that's why I became a scientist, because I wanted to know what was real. I became obsessed with, how do I determine what's actually real or what's likely to be true? So, for instance, a really bad scientist will do research and then tell you how things are. That's bad science. Science never tells you what's true. What science will tell you is what statistically is most likely to be true, what the margin of errors are. You know, it will give you, basically, it makes you a really good gambler. So, for instance, when Ryan was doing his dice experiment, he has a thing called a p-value, which is the probable relationship between, whether this is real or not. and he ran values into the millions to one. So you use real science, statistics, to see what's most likely true. So if I see an outrageous coincidence and it's got a message for me, well, what I do is, what's the actual likelihood this is to be true? Now, my own politics tend to, be really humanitarian and liberal, but when looking at the nature of reality, I become immensely conservative. So, if a series of synchronistic events tell me that non-corporeal extraterrestrial aliens are teaching me physics, well, my thing is, how likely is that actually to be true? Okay? If something wanted to teach me something, it would just show up and teach me. It's like, what's the actual proof? And people's logic falls down there a lot. I mean, they'll just say, like my friend, the client who, thought he was talking to God. Well, that's the only explanation he had. Did he actually do anything, try to do some research, run some experiments, set up some conditions to see what happened, keep a journal? No. He jumped to the thing he could already believe the most easily. And what I'm saying is that this is a really great journey. The journey in reality is, who are you? Who are you really? What is your own inner self like? What does your unconscious think about? What issues are you processing? And these things can all be done with synchronicity. You can use synchronicity as a window to your own unconscious. Now, one of the amazing things is that, what we know of ourselves is only the tip of the iceberg. Like I said, the conscious awareness is like the size of a walnut. The rest of those systems are relatively automated, but they're there. And you can start to look at the synchronistic patterns, the way you interpret things, the way your experience has caused you to filter things, and you can start to see your unconscious and even transpersonal, those things that transcend us, patterns in the synchronicities.
Let me interject something here. And, my last comment was trying to equate the interconnectedness or the, there's some semblance of non-locality in that, transpersonal element. I think that connecting element is what really gives connection between quantum physics and implicate order and non-locality, and this transpersonal ability of consciousness to, sort of manipulate identification of your own process. It's almost like chicken or the egg. What is actually manifesting what, or which realization is actually based on which realization. It sounds really good in theory. How do you propose actually harnessing this? First of all, identifying it, and then actually, proactively harnessing this quality of our existence.
Okay, well, I have two answers for that. The first is, I wrote the book to show people exactly how to do that. It's very practical, and it works. There's two parts to that. One is, not believing everything you think. Okay, so the first part, it was written for people who are either have a touch of psychosis, or they've been meditating too much, or they've had a breakthrough, and they have an explosion of these events, and their life is starting to tank because, if you don't realize you're looking in a mirror, this stuff gets pretty intense. So I wrote the book for people who experience the events, who need a grounding, who need a logical reason of how this works, that it's not unusual, it's not unsafe, it's not scary, it's completely normal, and what the general pattern is and what to do with it. So the first part is sort of, normalizing the experience of people that are having these events, explaining to them what they are, the physics and metaphysics and psychology of how they're produced based on known neuroscience, and psychology. And then there's a bunch of exercises that say, what do you do with this? If it's not just self-knowledge, how can you play with this? Based on, whatever your spiritual understanding is, we have tremendous depth. There's a lot of stuff going on underneath conscious awareness that we will never be aware of, because the conscious part of the brain is not designed to know everything. It's designed as an adjunct processor to all the automated systems. So with synchronicity, a lot of it is creativity and play. Now, the unconscious knows things we don't know. It takes in little sensory data, and it sees patterns that we don't. It sees things that we repress out of our awareness because we don't want to deal with it. It also filters things from outside of us, I believe. For instance, people talk about psychic phenomena. Well, my view is that we're sort of like antennas pointed into space. We're like these gigantic radio telescope arrays. We collect all this vibrational signal in them, but in order to understand them, we run them through a computer whose programming can produce a visual image that we can relate to. In a lot of ways, I think that's what our brain does. We have all this stuff going on outside of conscious awareness, but we have this brain programmed well or poorly with its own stock of symbols and myths and patterns that can take those vibrational signals, turn them into something we can understand, usually a story. I mean, everybody is the hero of their own mythological story, as Campbell would say, and then gives it back to us in a way that we can see and relate to. I mean, many people understand that a huge amount of mythology, like, the Greek pantheons, they weren't really about gods. That was like sort of the plebeian understanding. They were stories that tell us how to live in the universe, that you could look into the universe and what's happening in your life and go, well, I remember this story that talked about this and what it was like.
Now, the one thing I want to bring up, and we'll get into this in our next segment, is that people take that and put that into the hands of divine beings that they then worship. Let's get into more of the possibilities of that as we continue with Dr. Kirby Surprise. The topic on the table is synchronicity. We'll begin to have your questions answered that you posed in the Paracast forums at forum.theparacast.com. With Gene and Chris, you're in
The Paracast.
You are listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
It's about time something new came along for better selling and buying online, and I found it. It's buysellmakeoffer.com, a brand new company that's the newest and best way to sell products online. You can even use Skype or video to sell your car, home, any product. You get 30 days free, packages starting from only $7.95, and buysellmakeoffer.com never charges item fees ever. Just go sign up, then load your stuff to sell. I love this site, buysellmakeoffer.com. Got it? Buy, sell, makeoffer.com. Better selling, better buying.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-905-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states.
Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to paranormaldate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
Are your Google search results killing you? Unflattering content in blogs, news articles, online reviews, social media, or other sources can jeopardize your reputation, your business, and your livelihood. Let Reputation.com help. Our patented technology will make the truth about you more visible while pushing down unwanted negative content. Improve your Google search results. Call Reputation.com at 1-800-831-0771 for a free consultation. That's 800-831-0771.
This is Kurt Sotheby, author of UFO Mysteries, and you're listening to the Paracast.
So, Dr. Kirby Surprise, when you were talking about that, about these examples that were cited here, is that kind of merge into religious beliefs?
Yes. Well, let me give you 2 exercises in the book that illustrate this. So the first one I call All the World is a Stage, a line from Shakespeare. Now, these synchronistic events do not just do simple direct reflections. That's only the very beginning. They reflect entire mythological patterns, entire storylines, hidden family dynamics, all kinds of stuff. So they'll also assume personalities for you. You can talk to the environment as if it's God or Bugs Bunny, and you will get a response in that personality. So for instance, one exercise, All the World's a Stage. In your everyday life, you pretend that you're basically on a holodeck, like out of science fiction. Your reality is being generated by a computer system, and there's a crew of people helping you with this stage show that you're starring in. Now, if you look out into the environment and go, oh, well, I've got a support crew behind the walls of reality that's arranging these events for me to communicate with me off stage about what's happening in the play that I and the people around me are engaged in. You look into the environment and you will begin to see synchronistic events that are sort of waving at you, like, hey, yeah, here we are. And then you pretend that you're in communication with the events, that you have this stage crew going on. And it works. It takes on any character you want. Now, the exercise that is after that pisses people off is called talking to God. Once you realize that you can talk to the events directly, that you can carry on conversations with your unconscious. Now, one of the things our brains does is we create replicas of the people around us inside our memory, and they actually act like people. That's how we know what your brother or parent or friend is going to likely do. We have a model of them in our supercomputer that we run things by, and it acts like we think they're going to act. So we talk to these other characters in our heads to determine what we think they're going to do. So instead of a stage crew, in the talking to God exercise, you look out at the universe and do as so many people do unconsciously already or have been taught to do. You ask God to flag you with an event. Say hello, let me know you're there. If you watch, pretty soon you start getting these events that have the personality structure of a deity behind them. Now, it's really interesting to give someone this event as a therapist, give them this exercise, and have them come back a couple of weeks later and say, yeah, it's angels and all this stuff is talking to me and God, and it's, all this amazing. And it's like, yeah, but, dude, I gave you the exercise to show you that you're creating this yourself, and now you're creating exactly the thing that we set up. And they go, oh. If the person's relatively open-minded and doesn't have a fixed delusional religious system going, they're kind of amazed, and it means that, they can have all these great creative possibilities. If you give this exercise to someone who's devoutly religious, it's going to piss them off, because if they actually do it, they're going to realize that what they've been communicating with is they're part of their own unconscious. Meditation, there's a meditation called the Ishtadeva meditation. So, for instance, In some sophisticated Buddhist meditations, they have a pantheon of gods. Your lifelong meditation is to move up meditating on these various gods. All of them are actually aspects of the human personality that you're meditating on to learn about. You're unlocking this aspect of your own inner self. Eventually, when you get to the top of the pyramid, there's a single deity, the Istadiva, which is all the most positive qualities you can imagine in a godlike figure. The final meditation is you let go of that, and you realize that all this was part of your own structure. My personal belief is that if people could understand that when they look into the world and see their own beliefs, their reality is not as concrete as they thought, it opens up a great possibility for understanding and compassion amongst people, when you don't have to be right about anything. One of the things that I've learned over and over again as a neuroscientist is that anything you experience can be wrong. I've worked with thousands of people who hallucinate. Their hallucinations are as real as the room you are in and the person you are talking to, because these same neurological systems that build this reality for you in your normal, healthy, waking consciousness are the same systems that build your dream environment and the same ones that create hallucinations for people. Anything that you experience could possibly, potentially be a hallucination. One of the things that we've evolved into is the frontal lobes of the brain, the executive functions, are not supposed to be sure about anything. What we're designed to do is, say we're like with a spear in the grass tracking an antelope. We're never quite sure what the camouflage is, and if we wait to be absolutely sure, we miss our shot, or we get eaten by the lion. Our brains are designed to make a guess. When the preponderance of evidence is enough, then you must act as if you are sure. One of the neurotic things to happen to people, though, is they have a belief system which they never let go of the hunting stage of being sure. We're supposed to take action and then step back and evaluate, well, how'd that go? Was I right? Lots of people can never let go of not being right about something. Synchronicity is a very humbling thing because you see all these strange patterns, and then you guys figure, well, what's actually real? Knowing that you can be wrong about any of it. The consistent thing, though, is if you look for it, that pattern absolutely will show up.
Well, we create, in a sense, our own reality, which I guess makes things difficult. Do you believe at all that there is one central consciousness or supreme being?
There's a lot of definition there. Like, for instance, different ways to produce synchronicity. One of the worst is through prayer, because when you pray to something, there's an unconscious assumption that there's something out there, that it has a personality, and there's a whole bunch of rules of relationship involved between you and whatever it is you're envisioning that you may not be completely aware of when you start that. I do believe that physics is telling us that there is only one field of energy. I mean, we're looking back at the first trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a second before the Big Bang and trying to get the math straight for that brief period where all the forces, matters, and energies were completely non-separate. We know that at the very beginning was absolute unity, and that all the different fields and forces differentiated out of that, after the bang, after the temperature started to drop.
Yeah, but why?
Well, good question. I think that we look out into the universe and that we are not designed to understand it all. Even physics right now is going, well, gee, we got the Higgs boson, and oops, wait a minute, there might be flavors of that gives mass to other particles, but there may be whole universes of energy of particles that don't interact with the Higgs boson, and therefore the particles have no mass and are tachyonic. They have no location in time and no speed limit. Now, we are mammals. Our brains were designed to think in patterns that keep the organism alive and allow it to reproduce. As such, we have a certain sort of size range in the universe. We're not really designed to fully comprehend things on subatomic scales. That's why quantum physics is damn confusing at times. Or at very, very large scales, like universal energy releases and black holes, because we don't live there. The brain didn't need to do that to survive. Now, we try to develop mathematical models which are math is a language for precisely describing things. So we try to make descriptive models that will allow us to sort of take it down into sensory ranges we can think about. Everything you can think about is based on juggling stored sensory information. All of your memories and thought process are based on things that came in through your senses and that you break up and reassociate with something else and add to something else and process, modify with something else to get ideas. But we actually think in terms of sensory data. The universe itself isn't made of that stuff. It's like people look for meaning in the universe. Well, the universe doesn't have a meaning.
Well, we're not going to have a meaning if we don't break. We're going to break right now. We have more to talk about with Dr. Kirby Surprise and Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKEsoft.com. Lemkesoft.com. LEMKEsoft.com.
Why be held hostage by your wireless carrier for 2 years? What if you had no contract, no activation fees, no hidden costs, tracking, tracing, harvesting customer data, or draconian gimmicks, all on the nation's best 4G LTE network? Introducing Pix Wireless. Bring your phone and other qualifying devices to Pix and choose a plan starting at only $14 a month. Get connected now. Call or click 1-866-267-2056 or pixwireless.com. Spelled P-I-X, wireless.com. Pick Pix and get connected today.
Water is the single most important thing your body needs, so you want to be sure it's the best for you and your family. Since 2005, thousands have depended on Berkey purified water. The Berkey Guy provides the lowest priced filtration systems in every size. For incredibly delicious water now and in an emergency, get to GoBerkey.com or call 877-886-3653. 877-886-3653. GoBerkey.com.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS?
Get on board with the Tax Admiral. Don't take on the IRS alone. I'll cut penalties and reduce your overall tax bill. Sometimes I can even get it zeroed out completely.
We're an A-rated company helping people clean up their mess with the IRS.
If you owe $10,000 or more, then call the Tax Admiral.
Call 800-287-7180. Again, that's 800-287-7180. 800-287-7180.
Is negative content or comments on the web affecting your personal or professional reputation? Unfavorable comments, embarrassing pictures, videos, legal documents, and negative articles can ruin your personal life, your career, or your business. It happens a lot, and it's just not fair. But what can you do? Reputation Defender from Reputation.com can help you protect your good name. Get a free consultation now at 800-831-0771. That's 800-831-0771. Call right now for a free expert reputation analysis. It's easy to squash the unfair attacks with our patented system, and the analysis is absolutely free. Make the best things about you jump out in searches. Protect your personal and professional reputation, your business, and your income. Get your free reputation analysis from Reputation Defender right now. Call 800-831-0771. 800-831-0771. That's 800-831-0771. Or visit ReputationDefender.com.
My dad was 59 when he collapsed from a heart attack late last year. Just this past August was when we spread his ashes on the St. Croix River. I loved my dad, but boy was he stubborn. He hadn't been to the doctor in over 25 years. His excuse? He simply couldn't afford it. He wasn't a rich man by any means. At less than $107 per month, libertyoncall.org would have been the perfect alternative for my father. Don't wait. Go to libertyoncall.org right now, for not just your sake, but for the sake of your loved ones. Again, that's libertyoncall.org.
Hi, it's Grant Cameron from presidentialufo.com. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
We have Dr. Kirby Surprise with Gene and Chris. The book is Synchronicity. Chris?
You know, we've got a number of I think, enthusiastic posters at forum.theparacast.com, the question bank, where our listeners are able to ask our guests questions that we then post. Okay, there's several I think that we've already covered, but here's, I think, a real fundamental one that makes a lot of sense. And this is from Spectre73, and they say, I would like to ask if he believes that there is a deep-rooted need for us humans to believe in synchronicities. And, of course, you have to kind of give the caveat that, you know, there's X amount of people out there that don't even know what a synchronicity is. So it's very difficult for them to have any belief in it. So I'm not sure, you know, what kind of answer you can really give to this question, because there are some up-to-speed folks that really, you know, have a sense that, you know, there's something going on out there that is a meaningful coincidence. And, of course, that's where Jung came up with the kind of loose term synchronicity. But do you think there's a need for us to have to believe in that, whether we even know what it is or not? Or
I think that it's a normal form of perception. Most societies, you know, before modern Western philosophers and scientists got all anal about it, synchronicity was no big deal. I mean, everybody operated their entire lives on synchronicity. So, for instance, the Greeks believed that there were certain special stones that if you beat them with a wet olive branch, you could make it rain. Now, that's a form of synchronicity because it works. If you sit there and beat the rock long enough, it's going to rain. You know, it may take you months, but eventually it will. People always have seen these coincidental events. You know, one of the oldest cave paintings in the world in La Tour, France, is the shaman dancing in a stag mask. Now, the reason the guy is dancing in a mask is because they realized that there's a connection between what we do and what we run into in the environment. So he's trying to make the game appear for the tribe. Synchronistic events, this belief in magic, so to speak, has been the way we've always run things until almost right into the 20th century. Now,
so it's almost hardwired into our you know, our genetic makeup, basically.
It is indeed. Now, in psychology, there's developmental stages. We call them epigenetic stages because, you know, you go through stage one and it remains intact, but it's added onto by the next stages. The adult can do everything the child could do, you know, and more. Now, in this culture, though, we do this act of cognitive castration on people. You know, when they're 3, 4, 5 years old, you know, we show them Disney movies and tell them to wish upon the star, and if you only believe and want it enough, you know, magic happens. And then, you know, they get to be 8, 9 years old, and we say, well, you know, look, kid, we kind of lied to you. Magic is not really real, and you don't have any effect on the environment, and what you want doesn't mean anything. We're going to teach you job skill, and you can forget all that other stuff. Well, the reality is that the child was right. You do see reflections in the environment. You do see the unconscious teaching you. All this stuff happens through synchronistic events. You actually have to be trained not to look for them, which is the amazing thing to me. And here's a caveat for your listeners. You know, buying the book or not, if you realize this is actually how it works, and you go out and you create your own synchronistic mythology. I mean, I walk through, you know, dozens of these things a day, and usually there's something the unconscious is telling me that's useful or funny, you know. Once you understand how this works and you live in a world where you understand you're seeing reflections, you can't turn it off again. It's like suddenly being aware of the color blue. Well, you can't go back to not knowing it's there. Synchronicity is normal, natural, you know, state of consciousness. It's supposed to be in operation all the time. The fact that people don't see it is just because, you know, they've basically been beaten into belief systems that don't allow for synchronicity's existence. And if you don't believe it's there, it's going to oblige you and not show up as a reflection.
I kind of wonder when I hear stuff like this, whether as children, before we're polluted with the world-weary knowledge of our parents and others, we have innate abilities that we just accept. But as soon as it's drilled into us that this is not right, we have to become religious, we have to accept the straight and narrow, we lose all these capabilities.
Where's Peter Pan when we need him, her?
Well, it's absolutely. We are taught not to think about things. And listen what happens to the typical child. I mean, or my client that says he thought he was talking to God. I mean, if you tell somebody you see these events in the environment, you're going to probably label with a psychiatric disorder. I mean, the fact that, I had to go out and become a licensed psychologist, study neuroscience and be able to explain this from neuropsychology, psychology, metaphysics, and field physics, and get a rational explanation before it be taken seriously. And the response has been great. I've got physicists and educators from all over the world who are going, wow, yeah, that is how it works. But unless you can come up with like some creds, your buds are going to tell you you're nuts.
Okay, well, here's a question from a listener who posted at forum.theparacast.com. They've just signed up here last week, Invisible Interaction. And this is their first post ever, as they say. And they're wondering, what does Dr. Surprise feel the implications are with regards to the fact that after not a large amount of time, you purportedly created what would, I guess, effectively be called a tulpa. Have you created anything else along those lines since you've written the book? And he's suggesting that any tulpa-related talk with regards to your previous experiences would be great, and gave hashtag tulpa talk as a place to maybe do that later on. But I was not aware that you were able to create a tulpa. You want to talk about that?
Sure. So tulpas are thought forms. Those patterns I talked about in the aura that you can see, people thinking and feeling, those are tulpa. Tulpa is just the word for a thought form.
Well, I thought a tulpa was a thought form that manifests in a nuts and bolts manner in reality.
Well, they all do. I mean, you can put energy into them and get some effects out of them. If I want to create a long-standing synchronistic effect, I will create a tulpa. Now, let me finish this piece.
Well, first of all, define tulpa, because, Alexandra David Neal claimed that she was able to manifest a tulpa that helped her carry her baggage, and actually got a little belligerent when she tried to sort of decreate him. Are you talking about a
okay? So she created a Friar Tuck image. She didn't create the image to carry baggage, and you're not going to get him to do that. You can't make enough energy that way to move stuff. What she created was she was lonely. She was in the highlands of Tibet, and she was looking for a companion. So she created this image of Friar Tuck that she could see, nobody else could see it. And over time, though, the tulpa degenerated. It became thinner and kind of meaner and not as jovial. And what happened to her, which I actually talk about this in the Synchronicity book, is she was alone, a woman in, basically in the wilderness in all these misogynistic societies, and she was constantly in danger and worried, and she needed some companionship. So she created this thing out of what she thought was the best qualities to focus on. Friar Tuck is jolly, he's harmless. But the thing was, eventually the unconscious fears and anxieties that were attached to the image, the reason it was created, began to manifest, and she eventually had to get rid of it. And yeah, I've created stuff like that people who are sensitive enough can see it's there. But you must understand what these things are actually made of, though. You're taking emotional and mental energy in your own field, and you're concentrating it. Now, in the same way as, say, if you watch a baseball game and then you go to bed, you close your eyes, you can see the game, right? You can see images still. Your brain is still processing. If you have a powerful emotion, enough attentional energy is put into it, enough emotional valence is the neurological term, you're creating a form that doesn't simply instantaneously dissolve as part of your stream of thought. It remains in the aura as an object. That is a tulpa, is a thought form.
Well, that
now,
almost
tulpas, as you're
dovetails
thinking,
with that's almost like a poltergeist.
right. Now, the art of them is like if you leave them in the aura, they create synchronistic events. They work quite well. It's also an ideal way of sort of programming your own psychology because they are images and colors and feelings all wrapped up. So you're using sort of a code language for doing your own, neural processing and programming. Now, if you detach the thought form into the environment, you kick it out of the aura, and it becomes an independent tulpa. It's sort of like you create an android. It's like R2-D2.
Okay, we'll talk about R2-D2 and more. Or we will. Dr. Kirby Surprise with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
First came Attack of the Rockoids, and it was a critically acclaimed success. And now there's The Coming of the Protectors. A former military intelligence man is contacted by a space woman in a dream that turns out to be a nightmare because evil forces on her distant planet are planning to conquer the Earth. This is gripping science fiction of the classic kind. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Find out more at rockoids.com. That's rockoids, ROCKOIDS.com.
As you know, neighbors, web hosting can be pretty cheap, but not all hosting is the same. DreamHost wins Best of Awards year after year. You get unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, and even the low-cost plans put your sites on high-performance SSDs. Want to know more about what DreamHost has to offer? Go to technightowl.com/host. Once again, that's technightowl.com/host.
You haven't experienced yogurt until you've tried a Mossy, embodying health and flavor in a true whole milk, green-fed dairy beverage. Every sip pays homage to our old world cows and the ancient culturing methods their milk benefits from. With over 30 probiotics, a Mossy's undeniably nutritious, refined, cultured sensation bolsters your health and awakens your passion for dairy. A Mossy's so good, and you need to try it. Contact your Youngevity distributor or call 877-878-4203 or go to gcnteam.com.
Ted Anderson telling you about Jordan Rubin's Beyond Organic Green-Fed Raw Cheddar Artesian Cheese featuring whole milk created through ancient dairy breeding, unpasteurized, untreated whole milk on the same farm the cows graze, containing natural sources of omega-3s, CLA protein, calcium, probiotics, and enzymes. I have never tasted cheese this good, and you need to try it. Contact your Youngevity distributor or call 877-878-4203 or go to gcnteam.com.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
We must have a Star Wars reference, don't we, Dr. Kirby Surprise? Please go on.
Okay, so you create these little forms that the amount of time they're going to stay coherent is going to depend on the emotional intensity and the amount of energy you put into them. That's why people create them with meditation. You keep focused on the same thing. You create a pattern that's coherent that will continue to exist when you turn your attention elsewhere.
Right.
But they're not living things.
Buddhism.
Yeah, exactly. They're not living things, though. I mean, you've created a toy that can run some programming. They also are changing the event patterns around them. That's the way it's done. They have astral mass, for lack of a better word, and they cause curvatures in the underlying event structures around people. Now, again, mostly they are ways of steering yourself through probability. They're not, for going out and altering anybody else's external reality. The thing is, we don't exist on just one probability, though. We exist on a range of them. So, you exist on a range of possible probabilities right now. And you're steering this mass, because you too are a thought form, through probability. So thought forms can be used as a way to focus your attention to steer through probability. That's that 3 to 6% change. They are not dangerous. The other thing is it's not a skill. Everybody does this normally. Every thought you have, every feeling you have creates one of these temporary forms. It may only last a fraction of a second as part of your train of thought, or if it's one of your major life issues, it may be a solid thing in your aura people can detect. Whether or not any of this is actually real, like, if a conservative scientist is looking about it, is actually irrelevant, because if you use the model, it works. So if you want to use Tulpa to create localized synchronistic events based on the color and mental form of the Tulpa you've created, it will work. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a real Tulpa there or that this philosophy is, what's going on. It does mean, like our ancient folks that used to use the stars to know when to plant their crops, that the explanation is good enough. Now, I have no doubt that in decades to come, they're going to look at this model and go, well, yeah, that was cute. It's like mythology. It's like, our ancestors believing the world was flat and under a dome. Well, that's not a stupid thing to believe, because if you walk outside and look around, it's a circle, and if you look at the sky, it looks like a dome, so, close enough. My thing is, people should, if they're interested in this, is, buy the book or just use the reflective exercises and do it yourself. This is not a spiritually advanced practice. This is not something that requires psychic talents or powers. Everybody does this normally. It's just that we've been taught not to pay attention to it. The problem is, once people pay attention to it and it shows up gangbusters, it completely blows their conception of the solidity of their reality out of the water. And what it necessitates is they understand who they are, what they think, how they rationalize things, and what they project onto other people, so that, you can eventually comfortably live in a world where yours and the meanings of other people's events are synchronistically obvious all around you all the time. I've had many clients where, as you're talking to them, they're not aware of synchronistic events, but as you're talking to them, you can see the events being altered around them. The environment's talking to you about, the issues they had with their family of origin, and the information's usually correct, but it's not unusual. I mean, one of the amazing things to me is people talk about supernatural. No, there's no supernatural. There's just natural. That's all there is. There are phenomena that don't have a good explanation yet, and maybe the explanation you come in with is not correct, but it doesn't mean there's something like, eerie ooh, about it. For instance, people see UFOs. I believe people see UFOs. They're unidentified flying objects. What are they? They're unidentified. And if you can take that attitude, then it's like you don't have to discount anybody else's experience.
Well,
people's experiences are generally real.
What do you think they are? Are we talking about nuts and bolts physical craft, or are we talking about, manifested psychisms? Are we talking about inadvertent collective tulpas? Are we talking about aliens from Zeta Reticuli? What are we looking at?
My opinion is we have a combination, is that we do it. Okay, the manifestation part, is us. That's tulpas. Okay, that's for sure.
So are UFOs then tulpas?
I think they are. Well, here's my logic. Okay, yeah, I'm not talking. I don't have a gray-headed alien in my closet giving me information. But here is what I think.
Well, you're not cool.
I'm sorry. I like the movie, but I couldn't get past that. But I do believe this. This is the most likely scenario. I'm looking at where our technology is likely to be headed within 200 years. Okay, we are already talking about building computers that use time loops so that infinitely complex problems can be solved instantaneously. Okay, we're already on quantum levels, we have quantum computers that use the separation process already. Okay, we're already got this.
Who knows what the DOD has devised?
Right. Well, the thing is, ultimately, we're going to not want to be limited by physical reality. We're going to want to have a consciousness that where we don't grow old and die, we don't have the limits of physical body, we can design the environment to be anything we want, and we can design ourselves instantaneously to be anything we want. Now, if you can cross interstellar space, okay, you have an unlimited energy supply. And if you're only a few hundred years out from where we are, okay, I believe you're not physical anymore. Now, this is where, in my personal mythology, spirituality and physics merges. I think maybe, just maybe, everybody's been talking about angels and divas and all this stuff for thousands of years. I think this is advanced technology. I think nature itself and consciousness itself is technology that we're just slowly catching on to. So, when I see UFO, it's like, why in all of creation would anybody bother crossing space with a physical form? And have to put up with all, the energy requirements and the time dilation, all that. I think that, all of our spiritual disciplines that, talk about levels of consciousness and, heavens and all this mythology, I think these are just little clues into the natural technology of the universe that's always been there, and that we are slowly catching on to. And synchronicity is a small part of this. This is not magic, although it does explain almost all of magic in human history. This is a little toehold into another form of technology that involves consciousness as well as manifestation in the external world.
Well, let's tackle a couple of questions here. You brought up some very, very intriguing points. I hear a lot of kind of focus on the individual role, kind of like focusing on a single synapse in a brain, and giving it maybe a little bit more, sort of creative credit than is due. Because I've always had a sense that we're dealing with something that is highly connected and is connected, like in a holographic sense, with implicate order within the piece is a reflection of the whole, and that combined with some fairly obtuse quantum physics sort of rationale, there is an interconnectedness between matter and energy.
Let's do our break here, Chris.
Okay.
More to come. 2 more segments with Dr. Kirby Surprise. It gets more fascinating by the moment. With Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
If you're fascinated by UFOs, ancient aliens, archaeological mysteries, ghost hunting, Atlantis, and any other paranormal topic as we are, be sure to check out apmagazine.info each month. Since 1985, it has presented the latest research by top researchers like Andrew Collins, Brad Steiger, and many others, and contains interviews with such leading personalities as Jacques Vallée. Click on one of their banners and check out apmagazine.info. As you know, neighbors, web hosting can be pretty cheap, but not all hosting is the same. DreamHost wins Best of Awards year after year. You get unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, and even the low-cost plans put your sites on high-performance SSDs. Want to know more about what DreamHost has to offer? Go to technightowl.com/host. Once again, that's technightowl.com/host.
Hi, I'm Dr. Joel Wallach, the Dead Doctors Don't Lie guy. There's no reason why you shouldn't live to be at least 100 and have a great time getting there. And I'm going to give you a free copy of my lecture that tells you exactly how to do it. In fact, after you've lived a long and healthy life, there should be only 2 documents in your medical chart, a birth certificate and a death certificate. I'm Dr. Wallach with a warning. If you have a 4-inch medical chart, if you take prescription drugs for high cholesterol, high blood pressure, arthritis, joint pains, and other health issues, the medical profession is failing you. They're using you for an ATM machine. My free lecture is going to reveal what pharmaceutical companies don't want you to know. There's been groundbreaking research and discoveries on how to effectively treat or eliminate over 900 different diseases naturally. And it's all in my free lecture called Deadly Recipe. So call toll-free 1-855-79-YOUNG. Again, that's toll-free 1-855-79-YOUNG. 1-855-79-YOUNG.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS?
Get on board with the Tax Admiral. Don't take on the IRS alone. I'll cut penalties and reduce your overall tax bill. Sometimes I can even get it zeroed out completely.
We're an A-rated company helping people clean up their mess with the IRS.
If you owe $10,000 or more, then call the Tax Admiral.
Call 800-287-7180. Again, that's 800-287-7180. 800-287-7180.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pencil and jot down this special number, 1-855-905-MY-TV. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for less money. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99, and there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials. Watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Pull out your major credit or debit card. Call 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut costs and get more. 1-855-905-MY-TV. 1-855-905-MY-TV.
Hey guys, Pat Matthews here to tell you all about the newest and best way to sell your products online. It's buysellmakeoffer.com, a brand new site to sell your stuff online. Your old golf clubs, sports equipment, tools, and yes, even your car. Forget about the other guys. Buysellmakeoffer.com will never charge you item fees. Go to the website now and sign up so that you can soon load all your stuff up to sell. This is not an auction site. Just use our resources along with Skype and videos to sell your items quickly and with no fees. Go right now to user-friendly buysellmakeoffer.com, where the first 30 days are on us.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
We have Dr. Kirby Surprise with Gene and Chris was starting a discussion. Please continue.
Right. Yeah, I was. And you know, my whole thing is, there seems to be an interrelationship between meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. And I have a question that really gets back, kind of reminding people what the definition is. You know, this is something, you know, it's like the one or the many. It's like the piece of the hologram versus, you know, the entire hologram being contained in a less, you know, defined way, but within that piece. And that kind of leads me to a question by Joey K22, who's been a longtime member of the Paracast since 7 years. But, you know, again, with only 40 posts, you're bringing out some of our lurkers, which is great. And Joey K22 was wondering what your most amazing cases of synchronicity or coincidence are, and what your explanations are. I've been talking about. But then Polterwurst also has a question. And he says, are there no real, improbable, and meaningless coincidences in nature, like Einstein thought that there was no real randomness? And you understand why I've sort of put those two questions together. You know, are we talking about something that is always organized? And how do you draw the line between, you know, meaningful coincidence and just mundane coincidence?
Yeah, there's mundane coincidences all over the place. I mean, it's a matter of synchronicity in particular is a meaningful coincidence, which means that there's some mental activity on our part that assigns it as meaning. Now, the Einstein quote is misunderstood. Einstein was responding to the particular problem in quantum physics of, you know, whether a particle is at a single location or a universal location and how it jumps back and forth. That quote is misunderstood all over the place. I would like to get back to a very specific thing about the work I've done with synchronicity, which is, you know, there's this old joke about a drunk. This guy sees him like in an alley searching under a street lamp on his hands and knees. And the guy goes, well, what are you doing? He goes, I'm looking for my car keys. And he goes, well, where'd you leave them? And he points down this dark alley and he goes, well, why are you searching over here? And the guy goes, well, because this is where the light is. This is my book, okay? I am focusing on a very, very tiny aspect of the universe, which is the 3 to 5% that we can consciously use to create synchronistic events and what they're good for. You know, I don't have a clue about the non-material, unobservable spiritual universe and what's really happening. I have my own personal mythologies, but I have no direct perception. You know, I cannot see the forge of creation, and, you know, I'm not a psychic. So I try to go by what most likely is true and what I can do some good with, which was create this book so people would be less frightened and confused by the phenomenon. Right. You know, are there real UFO, aliens walking around? I have no idea. You know, do people get visited by angels? Oh, I don't know. I've never seen one. Can I design a synchronistic sequence where angels talk to me and give me things that I think I didn't know? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to mistake a series of coincidences for proof that something's real. So what I'm trying to do is say, look...
Yeah, it's just the basic difference between objectivity and subjectivity.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question from Wade, who's a longtime poster at forum.theparacast.com, where our listeners get to ask questions of our guests. And Wade's wondering if you feel that serendipity is joined at the hip with synchronicity in that they can both achieve the same internal response. Now, you know, we must re-recognize the role of language in all this, because without language, we couldn't even discuss these things. And also, you know, our lack of a real solid definition of consciousness and how it operates. But so what do you think? Here's a language question.
You know, it could be just coincidence. It could be a lot of things. I think, you know, one of the important things to understand here is that this view I'm giving people is sort of like you're your own planet and you have your own gravitational field around you. Most people have seen these pictures like a gravity well. You know, it's sort of like you put a bowling ball in the center of the trampoline. It makes this depression. That's a planet. Something rolls by, starts circling, you know, like a moon. That's sort of the way synchronicity can work or appear to work in some ways. You're at the center. It's your activity that's going to give meaning to the events that are circling around you.
Yeah. Every man and woman is a star.
Yeah. So, you know, it's sort of like, as a psychotherapist, yeah, I can help someone, you know, understand what they're thinking and feeling and put it in some normalized perspective. But when synchronistic events are involved, the meaningfulness, I mean, there are meaningful by definition. The meaning has to be derived from the person experiencing the event. You can't have someone else come in and say, oh, well, this is what this means. No, because you're at the center. One of the maddening things in physics, for instance, is in relativity, the math doesn't work because it requires every individual point in the universe to be its own central locale and have its own unique mathematical relationship with every other point, which is so far beyond what we can do that it's laughable. And
it also needs a constant, which is the speed of light, which has actually been speeding up.
Right. On these wider scale things, you know, they're great to speculate on. The safest thing to do is synchronicity. The thing that'll keep you sanest and give you the most pleasure and let you have the most fun is to assume that you're looking at reflections of your own thoughts. Now, some of your thoughts are going to be spot on. You know, even if there's no proof, you had an intuition, it's absolutely right. And some of your thoughts are going to be ludicrous. And not taking what you think too seriously is a great skill in this. And it opens up a lot of possibilities. Like, you know, I can't pontificate on the ultimate nature of the universe because, like, as far as I know, I'm only got the memories of this one lifetime, and it's going to take a lot longer than that to figure everything out.
Well, I've had some amazing, just mind-numbingly intense synchronicities in my life, many of which I've written down in books and whatnot. So you're kind of preaching to the choir, at least as far as I'm concerned, because I have been absolutely just convinced that there is a network and a web of meaningful coincidence that is not only the individual looking outward, every man and woman is a star, but it's an interrelationship between all these various stars, you know, that have this interlocking web of meaningful coincidence. It's holographic in nature. It's who knows how many dimensional connections, and like you said, we don't really know, and we can't really say with any sort of certainty that any of this is true. But well, I'll tell you, I agree. I think the evidence would suggest that there is an amazing sort of software program going on, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, one of the interesting things for me is when I started out this investigation, many years ago, I first did like the very conservative scientific part, training, see what's real and what's not. The general attitude of a lot of scientists and physicists is that our ancestors were crazy. They believed in, planes of existence and states of consciousness and all this nonsense, blah, 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 alternate realities and probabilities. The amazing thing now is science is trying to come full circle. I mean, if you study M theory, it's like there are alternative probabilities, and it's beginning to look like our ancestors who came up with all their metaphysical mumbo-jumbo, our shamans, waving their bones and trying to talk to the spirits and talking about other worlds, they were as smart as we are.
Let's just stop it there. We've got to do our break. We've got more to come with Dr. Kirby Surprise and Synchronicities. You're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
If you're like me, you're concerned about the stock market and the economy. You're asking the questions, but it just doesn't seem that you're getting the right answers. Well, my friends at the Wealth Preservation Institute not only have the answers, but they've put together a free report, How to Survive the Upcoming Economic Collapse and Protect Your 401ks, IRA savings, and retirement income. Don't hesitate. This report's for free for a limited time by calling 888-772-2929. That's 888-772-2929. Take back your financial lives today.
It's about time something new came along for better selling and buying online, and I found it. It's buysellmakeoffer.com, a brand new company that's the newest and best way to sell products online. You can even use Skype or video to sell your car, home, any product. You get 30 days free, packages starting from only $7.95, and buysellmakeoffer.com never charges item fees ever. Just go sign up, then load your stuff to sell. I love this site, buysellmakeoffer.com. Got it? Buy, sell, makeoffer.com. Better selling, better buying.
Hi, Peter Vaccaro for ParanormalDate.com. Are you looking for love in all the wrong places? Now you have a chance to change that by signing up for free at ParanormalDate.com. This incredible dating site puts people of like minds together. People who are interested in the strange, the unusual, mysteries, ghosts, UFOs, and the afterlife, and so much more. ParanormalDate.com was developed for you, people seeking a viable alternative to the other dating services. You can join for free by going to ParanormalDate.com, and if you decide you like it and want to connect with people, use the code GEORGE for a substantial discount. Mark Rawlings, president of ParanormalDate.com, says so many people hunger to share their experiences about the paranormal, the unexplainable, or the afterlife, and so much more, and this is the source for them to meet and share that common interest. So sign up for free at ParanormalDate.com, ParanormalDate.com, and use the code GEORGE if you decide to connect with someone you like.
Why be held hostage by your wireless carrier for 2 years? What if you had no contract, no activation fees, no hidden costs, tracking, tracing, harvesting customer data, or draconian gimmicks, all on the nation's best 4G LTE network? Introducing Pix Wireless. Bring your phone and other qualifying devices to Pix and to choose a plan starting at only $14 a month. Get connected now. Call or click 1-866-267-2056 or PixWireless.com. Spelled P-I-X, wireless.com. Pick Pix and get connected today.
My name is Don Wiskin, and at 42 years old, I suffered a massive heart attack and was told I'd be on disability for the rest of my life. What did I do? I created Extendivite, a garlic and cayenne mix of 7 herbs which rebuilt my heart and gave me back my life. For over 17 years now, I have made this formula available to you so you don't have to suffer the same thing I did. Clean your blocked arteries and strengthen your heart and boost your natural immune system. I'm 60 years old now and I still work every day. To get your Extendivite, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com. Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Removing bad taste and odor from your drinking water is easy. Removing the bad stuff you don't taste is what ProPure does best. Water the way nature meant it to be. Clean, crisp, and refreshing. See the complete line of ProPure countertop, inline gravity, and household water filtration products. Visit your authorized ProPure dealer or ProPureUSA.com. That's ProPureUSA.com or call 800-544-3533.
Hi, this is Tracy Torme, screenwriter, producer. You're listening to Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
So as we find out that our ancestors were not so dumb as we thought they were, Chris O'Brien's become a robot. Dr. Kirby Surprise, please continue.
So we now know that a lot of the things that we laughed at are probably true. Our ancestors didn't have the math, they didn't have the technology, and they didn't know how to run an experiment that would reproduce something so they could tell how true it probably was. But they had the same ranges of intellect and consciousness as we do.
So they didn't need ancient astronauts to come down upon high in spaceships and tell them a few things.
Absolutely not. I did a show with Shirley MacLaine a couple of years ago. She was just dying to have extraterrestrials as a source of life on Earth, and asked me pointedly, if the Earth was seeded by extraterrestrials, expecting me to say, oh, yeah, that's possible. And my response was, well, the laws of physics and chemistry are the same everywhere in the universe. And there's absolutely no reason to believe that the universe isn't just lousy with life developed everywhere, because that's just the chemistry and physics of how things are everywhere.
Well, it's also the odds. There's tremendous odds to support that.
Absolutely. I mean, we've already found fossilized bacteria on Mars. So we know that 1 billion years ago, there was something there. It may have just died out before it became, anything that had legs, but there was life there. We look out in space, we see organic molecules everywhere. There are some scientists that are reasonably arguing that a lot of the viruses we have may be falling in from space because life is so ubiquitous. Maybe our form of intelligent life with technology is unbelievably rare, but life itself is probably everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, that goes to say then it could be possible that one of those extraterrestrial races has become advanced enough to pay us a visit.
Well, it would be nice, but again, there's no physical evidence that's credible. And why would you bother moving a physical object with such energy when, if you were based in consciousness itself, you could, for instance, bump up to the astral plane, naturally exceed the speed of light, show up at your destination, and if you feel like being physical, incarnate. And again, everybody's myth is different. I'm looking for the actual evidence. It's like people go, well, there's spaceships at Area 51. Well, no, Area 51 is where the Air Force test flies cutting-edge airplanes. So, it's like when the aliens land and show me a physical spaceship and do the Tonight Show, then I'll believe. Until then, maybe, maybe not.
If we're going to explore the theory here about possible alien beings, even if they came here, would they even want to be known? Would they want to reveal themselves? I'm thinking of the beginning of the movie Star Trek Into Darkness, which was otherwise a poor remake of Star Trek II. But it is the edict of the Federation, don't interfere with the local populace. So would you think then that if ET were to come to Earth, and obviously we are more primitive than they are, they really wouldn't want to be known that they're here?
I have no idea. I can offer a mythology, though. What if all the religions that talk about angels and celestial beings helping us out over time and teaching us are actually talking about technologically advanced consciousnesses, and that they're talking about it in the only terms that they had available at the time? And again, lots of speculation that I don't go into. I'm trying to do just my little teeny area of synchronicity to show people that they can have an effect on the direction of their lives by choosing the direction of their thoughts.
When you talk about controlling where your thoughts take you, this expands into a totally different direction, so I'll just do it briefly. There is a movie from 1979 called Somewhere in Time with Jane Seymour and Christopher Reeve. And Christopher Reeve plays a writer who becomes obsessed with a woman who lived in the late 19th century. In a sense, he falls in love with her, so he uses self-hypnosis to go back in time. Except the spell is broken when he looks at his watch, which is a modern watch, and suddenly he's sent back to the present. Ever hear of that movie?
Yes, I have. It's been done as a horror film, too.
Okay, it's based on Richard Matheson's story.
Yeah.
Obviously, it extends the belief in what one can do to a very, very extreme extent.
Well, here's the thing. I did a lot of research on which psychic phenomena are real and not. So for things like past life regressions, they did some massive studies on these reports. And what they found was that the details of what people were reporting, say someone reports that they lived in ancient Rome, and they give all kinds of details about, what the markets were like and, what the clothing was like and, what the politics was like. Well, when you actually go back and fact check the individual details, what you find is that they're wrong. What they're reporting are things they've seen in the movies, like Cecil B. DeMille remakes of what Rome looked like. The same thing on remote viewing.
Same thing on hoaxed UFO photographs.
What?
The same thing on hoaxed UFO photographs. They all look like something out of the 50s. Adamski, Daniel Fry, people like that, Billy Meyer.
Right. And when you look at very ancient pictures of UFOs, the technology is reflected of the times. The Greeks saw chariots. In the Industrial Revolution, people saw rivets. It's like they had all kinds of assumptions about what it would look like. So that's what it looks like. Remote viewing, almost every major country in the world and a lot of universities and the CIA, all kinds of people have had projects with millions of dollars lasting decades trying to make this work so they could spy on each other. It doesn't work. So synchronicity, though, like using it as reflection, creating your own consciously designed synchronistic events, not only does it work, it's easy, and people are already doing it.
I want to interrupt you for one thing here. I know you'll disagree. You're not familiar with the case. We had a guest on the show named name of Dawes Smith a few years ago, and I want to bring him back. He did an experiment in remote viewing where he came up with something that seemed way, way, way ahead of the probability of chance in seeing something. Now, maybe he just lucked out. I don't know. Maybe he has studied his synchronistic abilities to an extent where he could do it better than a lot of other people. But I will agree with you, though, that whatever remote viewing is, whatever accuracy level it has, it's not nearly enough to be a reliable tool for anything.
Right. But synchronicity is a reliable tool for learning about the processes of your own unconscious.
Chris, do we have any questions? We have about a segment and a bit left.
Well, I don't know. Wade again has a question that is pretty interesting in light of what we're talking about. And he's wondering if maybe this whole idea of minimizing potential synchronicity into simple coincidences is not a good idea. And he's wondering that maybe we shouldn't dismiss things as just a coincidence, that we should maybe possibly look, deeper into it. And at what point, I guess, do we cut off searching for meaning?
Oh, I think people should search for meaning in anything that's available their entire lives. I think that's one of the things that makes us truly human. I think, the people I've seen that seemed rather soulless to me were the ones that stopped being curious, that were sure about what was going on.
What are some of the most amazing cases of synchronicity or coincidences that you're aware of? I know Carl Jung had some amazing examples, and some, including several personal examples. And again, this is from our lurker, Joey K22.
Before we have the answer, I want to just mention one more thing before we get to that final segment. And that is, we have the Paracast Plus with the ad-free version of this show, the After the Paracast podcast, show transcripts, a new video channel. It's available for you for a low subscription rate. Go to plus.theparacast.com, plus.theparacast.com. We continue our journey into the world of synchronicities with Dr. Kirby Surprise. On the other side, with Gene and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's Lemke soft.com. Lemkesoft.com. Lemke soft.com.
We use mobile devices right against our bodies every day, but growing scientific evidence has emerged showing serious health risks associated with exposure to EMF radiation emitted from these devices. The solution is Defender Shield, the most effective mobile radiation shielding ever developed. Defender Shield blocks virtually 100% of EMF radiation from cell phones, tablets, and laptops, and starts at just $64.99. Buy now at DefenderShield.com. For 10% off, use promo code GCN. DefenderShield.com, the worldwide leader in mobile radiation shielding.
Are your Google search results killing you? Unflattering content in blogs, news articles, online reviews, social media, or other sources can jeopardize your reputation, your business, and your livelihood. Let Reputation.com help. Our patented technology will make the truth about you more visible while pushing down unwanted negative content. Improve your Google search results. Call Reputation.com at 1-800-831-0771 for a free consultation. That's 800-831-0771.
No other network provides the level of customer service we do. When it comes to radio advertising, we are your one-stop shop. And no matter how big or small your business is, we can help. Email us at advertise@gcnlive.com, and an experienced advertising executive will help you take the first step towards driving more customers to your business or website. Advertise@gcnlive.com. Easy, affordable, effective.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich? Working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare? Having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom106.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom, the number 106.com. Go to freedom106.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom106.com.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson Adam Pulaski of the Pulaski Law Firm with principal office in Houston, Texas is the attorney responsible for the content of this ad. This ad is not legal advice, and the choice of a lawyer should not be based solely upon advertisement. Services may not be available in all states. Attention Xarelto users. If you or a loved one took Xarelto and suffered a serious bleeding event, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Xarelto is a popular prescription blood thinner used to prevent blood clots and protect patients from strokes. These serious bleeding events have led to numerous cases of hospitalization and even death. Phone lines are open 24/7. Call 800-261-0937. That's 800-261-0937.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
We have Dr. Kirby Surprise for our final segment, and Chris asked a question, a rather involved, fascinating question. Dr. Surprise, would you give us your answer?
So this is definitely a cop-out. I'll warn you ahead of time.
Go for it, man.
You know, one of the problems with synchronicity is that people who study it think it's an unusual thing that happens to special people. Like, you know, Carl Jung did this, and, you know, this happened to this famous person. These are extremely mundane events, and in anyone's life, they can appear to reach cosmically important proportions. My advice to the questioner was stop worrying about synchronistic events and examples of other people and go make your own. You know, it's like it doesn't matter what happened to Carl Jung or somebody else. You can do this yourself. They will become more frequent, more intense, and more cosmic in scale the more you pay attention to them. And if you get overwhelmed, stop paying attention to them and they scale back, because it's the energy of your attention that drives them. I'm not into fanboy kind of stuff. You know, I think that everybody should live their own lives to the fullest and do their own thing. And this is not a skill per se. This is something that you're already doing. You just need to focus on it, and the brain will stop filtering out them. Everybody walks around in clouds of these events every day. I mean, the average person probably has 100 synchronistic events they don't see every single day of their normal lives. When you start to look for them, you stop filtering them out. When you tell the brain by the focus of your attention, this is important, it starts to pick them out of the environment and show you them. The same way that we have learned to see through the camouflage in the grass to see where the antelope or the lion is. Once you start looking for it, you start to see it. You know, this is everybody's ability, not just something that happens to some special people.
We're just about out of time, Dr. Surprise. So let me ask you here with regard to your research. You wrote the book a few years ago. Where have you gone in your research since then?
You know, I wrote the book. I sort of said what I needed to say with synchronicity. I teach individuals how to use it or how to detangle sort of their delusions from it when they're presented to me. I'm a psychotherapist by trade. I work in crisis beds and with psychotic folks. And the interpersonal work I do with people is more important than synchronicity is, because people are more important than concepts. The research I've done, I set up patterns in the environments for years. I mean, I have made my environment dance to Star Wars or Tolkien or, you know, any mythologies, played chess with the environment, all kinds of stuff that you can do. But it's for self-awareness and amusement. And the only people that are going to be self-aware and truly amused by it are the ones that are generating it themselves. At the moment, my life has sort of turned to studying hardcore neuropsychology. So at the moment, I'm studying frontal lobe function, things like that.
Wow. Well, it's really been educational and quite enlightening to have you on the show. It's a subject that, you know, kind of gets mentioned all the time in passing, but we really haven't, you know, really had someone like yourself that we could really dive into the whole subject. And I think we're just, you know, scratching the surface here. I think there's a lot more that can be discussed, and it'd be great to have you back at some point and kind of check back in with you.
Sure.
Excellent.
And I think our listeners really need to look at this and not just assume that everything we talk about has a paranormal explanation, that everything is outside of ourselves, that the power of the human mind seems to be just incredible. And the question I have, of course, is you're suggesting maybe in the future we'll all become thought forms. What do we do to make that transition without destroying us?
You know, I don't buy into the apocalyptic, you know, we're not meant to know this kind of philosophy. I think that none of us are going to see anything close to that in our lifetimes. I think that knowledge is a good thing. And I think that using synchronicity, you know, playfully, creatively, to have some fun with it. I mean, this is not a big, serious, heavy-duty subject necessarily, you know. This is a lot of fun. And I'm always very cautious. I mean, I know the planet's got environmental problems that we got to do something about. But, you know, I don't buy into the naturally apocalyptic mindset of, you know, there are things we're not meant to know or any of that stuff. I think that we have an absolutely amazing future in front of us.
Do you think we'll overcome then global warming and everything?
You know, I think that the next 10 to 15 generations are screwed. It's going to take a long time to fix this. I think that we're already seeing things that are hopeful, like oil prices are dropping because usage is going down. Solar and wind power have become economically on par with oil, and the prices are going to go down. And I think that what's going to happen is it's going to be cheaper to use renewable energy than it is to use oil. And that's the point where I think things really change. In the meantime, I think we're going to do devastating damage to the environment. Devastating. But, nowadays, I think we're going to live through it, though. I think it's going to be awful, and it's going to take 300 years before the Earth resets. But I do think that, we're sort of at the cusp of, making it better now.
Yeah. From your mouth to synchronistic ears, or to the Tulpas ears.
Or to somebody's ears at any rate.
Well, we do invite you, Dr. Surprise. I'm trying to keep it formal but personal at the same time. You're invited to come to the forum at, the Paracast.com, where we have a thread that's going to be talking about your appearance here on the show. And you're more than, it'll be our pleasure to have you there answering some questions, because I'm telling you, this is really going to be an interesting topic of discussion after the show when people start posting about it.
Well, thank you.
Dr. Surprise, would you tell our listeners, if they want to know more about what you do you have a website or someplace they can follow up? Or is it all in the book?
It's pretty much in the book. The book is available in Amazon. It's in 5 languages and just about any format you could possibly imagine. My real major work is I'm a psychologist. And at the moment, the last 8 years or so, I've been working for the Department of Corrections in California. And, working with, psychotic inmates. So I get to see, brain malfunction from every possible direction. So one of the things I joke about, I'm kind of uniquely qualified to determine whether or not synchronicity is a form of mental illness, because, that's my job, is to diagnose it.
Wow. Tough job, man.
Now, as far as we're concerned, there are lots of places you can find us. It's not just one. Let me, as they say, cite the ways. You can find us on Twitter if you look for the Paracast. Look for the Paracast on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We have 2 official Paracast fan clubs. Look for the Paracast fan club. One's a community, one's a group. And unless some Facebook maven could tell us how to put them together, if we kill one, we lose its contents. We can't just merge them. I mean, we can merge them technically with losing the contents. I don't want to do that. We also have that second radio show called After the Paracast. After the Paracast is color commentary, a wrap-up show, special interviews, and very much the unexpected. And you can find it if you become a member of the Paracast Plus. We also offer the ad-free version of this show, which is how it all got started. By special request, we have a Paracast video channel. We have our first offering up there. More will come soon. We also have Paracast show transcripts, just a few special episodes. It takes time to type up transcripts of 2- and 3-hour shows, but we're getting there. We'll get more as we progress. To explore what the Paracast Plus is all about, go to plus.theparacast.com. That's plus.theparacast.com. And we have low month-to-month, annual, 5-year, and even a lifetime subscription. Yes, for the rest of our lives or somebody's lives, you can join up with the Paracast Plus, support the show, and always get the newest things. We have other features in the works. We might even bring in a full-time chat room. We've got the glimmering of that now. Plus.theparacast.com. This has been a fascinating journey into the frontiers of reality. With Dr. Kirby Surprise, the book is Synchronicity, The Art of Coincidence, Choice, and Unlocking Your Mind. Dr. Surprise, thanks for joining us on the Paracast.
Thank you very much.
The Paracast, featuring Gene Steinberg and Christopher O'Brien, is a copyrighted presentation of Making the Impossible Incorporated. Tune in next week. for a new adventure in the Paracast.